In this video, I'm going to discuss resetting your browser's default CSS. So I've got a basic document here that has an H1 tag and then 2 paragraphs of lorem following that. And then I've got an empty style sheet currently. You can see that that style sheet has been properly linked in the head of the document. So let's take a quick peek and see what this looks like in the browser. As you can see, we've got some spacing happening here. There's some spacing from the outer edges of the page to the actual content, and then I've also got some spacing in between the individual elements. So if we inspect this here, I'll open up this panel, and then if we go to computed, I'm just going to click on the body element there. And as we can see, the body element has some kind of margin all the way around it, so 8 pixels all around it. And then if I click on this H1 tag, I'll notice that this has margin as well. So I've got 21.44 pixels above and also 21.44 pixels below. Clicking on the paragraph element shows me a similar pattern here. In this case, we've got 16 pixels of margin above and 16 pixels of margin below. So what I want to do is actually zero that out in our style sheet so that instead of the browser controlling how much spacing we have between elements, we can actually control that explicitly. So let's head on over here to our style sheet, and I'm going to make a change here. I'm going to select every element on the page. That's what the asterisk means. And I'm going to say I want you to have 0 margin and also 0 padding. And let's take a peek and see what that looks like. As you can see, all of our margin surrounding the page has now gone away. That's now 0. And same thing goes for my H1 tag and my P tags as well. They all have 0 margin. Now, later on, if I want to add some of that margin back, it's very easy for me to do. I can explicitly say for P elements, I want them to have a margin bottom of 15 pixels, for instance. And then if we go back to our page, you'll see that we now do have some margin bottom. Maybe I want to have a little bit of margin bottom on my H1 tag as well. And maybe I want that to also be 15 pixels. So what we can do is we can target both the P tags and also any H1 tags as well. And that should give us the result that we want. Very nice. Now, another thing I want to point out is that our content is still right up against the edges of the page, and maybe we don't want that. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some padding to the body of our document. So I'm going to say, we're going to give that, say, 15, maybe 20 pixels of padding. Okay, and that brings the content away from the edges of the body element very nicely. Okay, one other thing that I'm going to show you here is how our browser defaults interact with the size of various boxes. So let's just create a div down here. So I'll say div, we'll give it a class of box, and in my style sheet I'm going to target this box class, and we'll give it an explicit height and an explicit width. So I'm going to say height is 50 pixels. Actually, we'll go with 100 pixels, and then our width will also be 100 pixels. And what I want to do is I want to put some content inside here. So this is my box so that we can see that, and let's also give it a background so it's a little bit clear what the box is. So I'm going to say background is yellow. Actually, let's go with light blue. Okay, so let's take a peek in the browser here. We see we've got this box right here, and I want to give the box some padding because I don't want this content to be right up against the edges of the box. So I'm going to say padding is 20 pixels, for instance. All right, so let's take a peek at what happened. Okay. As you can see, it looks like the box itself has expanded, which is not really what I was expecting. I was expecting that the box would remain the same, but it would just push the inner content away from its edges. So if I inspect this here, take a peek at it, you can see that the content here has the dimensions that I've specified, which is 100 pixels by 100 pixels. But really what I wanted is I wanted the dimensions of the entire box to be 100 by 100. So the way that we can change that is using a property called box sizing. So let's come back to our style sheet here, and I'm going to apply this to all of the elements on the page, because this is how I like to work with layouts, and I think it makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to specify a box sizing and set it to the border box, meaning that we want to size things according to where the borders of those boxes are. So if I save this and we go back to the browser, we'll see that now this div actually occupies 100 pixels by 100 pixels. The inner content, as you can see, is 60 by 60 because we have all this padding around the edges.